This is the Tom Anderson Show, broadcasting live from the KVNT studios, 7 to 9 a.m., Monday through Friday.
Well, we are back, and the saga continues. The New York Times reporting human rights activists and international leaders are collecting evidence that the beleaguered Uyghur Muslim community in Xinjiang province, basically you would know this as East Turkistan, could be the latest in, the article says, a long line of state-sanctioned victims. And they're being killed, and organs are being harvested. And it's a tragedy beyond what most of us, other than maybe seeing in a movie or reading in a book, could comprehend. And yet it's literally happening. And here in the United States, we're worried about economy or COVID-19 or the election in November. East Turkistan and the Uyghurs are worried about staying alive. So joining us, Salih Hudayar, and he is the Prime Minister of East Turkistan, and he can identify the problems, talk about how we can help them beyond prayers, and see if there's a solution. So Salih, Mr. Prime Minister, how are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I feel bad when we have interviews like this. You ask someone how they're doing with the obligatory salutation, but you're not doing well. And you can see this clear from your, no doubt, family members and brothers and sisters in China. First, explain, if you could, the cultural perspective when we talk about China or East Turkistan and we talk about Uyghur or Muslim. People may be confused. So maybe you can give a quick history lesson so it's understood who you are, who your people are, and where we're talking about geographically.
The Uyghurs are the largest ethnic Turkic group in East Turkestan. East Turkestan was once an independent nation up until 1949, when the Chinese communists invaded and occupied the region, the country, and renamed it to Xinjiang, which literally translates as the new territory. Over the past 70 years, China has been effectively colonizing East Turkestan and engaging in a brutal campaign of genocide, which has been continuing to this day. Over 3 million people are currently locked up in concentration camps, according to the U.S. Department of Defense. Over 500,000 Uyghur and other Turkic children, including Kazakhs, Kyrgyz, have been taken away from their families and sent to state-run orphanages to be raised as loyal Chinese citizens. Furthermore, both women and men are being forcibly sterilized by the Chinese government, and the Chinese government is forcing Uyghur women to marry Chinese men in a bid to eradicate the future of Uyghur and other Turkic existence. The real issue here, what we want to clarify, is that although the majority of East Turkestan's Turkic population, including the Uyghurs, are Muslims, they are not Chinese Muslims. In fact, East Turkestan has no relation, whatsoever, be it cultural, linguistic, political, or historical relations with China until really recently, when China occupied East Turkestan back in 1949. It's the far northwestern corner of what we know as China today, right above Tibet. It's roughly about 1/5 of China's current territory, and it's rich in natural and mineral resources, and it's a strategic gateway for China to enter Central Asia, the Middle East, and really reach out to even Europe. And this is why China is engaging in a brutal campaign of genocide and colonization.
When I first introduced you and the circumstance, I referenced New York Times, and actually Hollie McKay of FOXNews Digital cited some of the statistics I gave in details. The New York Times now reporting that 2 Uyghur activist organizations, the East Turkistan National Awakening Movement and the East Turkistan Government in Exile, filed a complaint to the International Criminal Court, the ICC, against the Beijing leadership. And what you alleged is that the hierarchy, the top brass, had committed genocide and crimes against humanity against your brothers and sisters, the Uyghurs there. And again, we mentioned stealing of organs, mostly from Muslim Turkic ethnic groups, and you are urging an inquiry. Do you think you have a chance? Do you think there will be a reception and there will be a recognition and this will take momentum and have momentum, or do you think that it will fall on deaf ears?
So far, it's actually been getting a lot of attention, both nationally and internationally. 3 days after we filed this complaint, the U.S. government sanctioned 4 Chinese officials in the among the list of 32 officials which we had urged the ICC to investigate and prosecute. The Canadian Parliament signed 64 members of the Canadian Parliament, along with our government in exile, signed a letter to the Canadian Prime Minister urging them to sanction Chinese officials. The UK government has been speaking out against this, members of the French Parliament as well. So I think it is going to, I think that it will get more momentum. We just need some states, more parliamentaries across the world, including Japan, India, and others, to join on our call and urge the ICC to launch the investigation immediately.
When I think of a Muslim, I think of the type that are in the United States, or I say type, the sect or the levels of Muslim faith are different. Whether you look at Saudi Arabia and the Middle East, or you look at the Philippines, or you look at Indonesia, the biggest population, or you look at an Albanian or Macedonian Muslim or a Uyghur. What is because there are so many sects is the wrong word, S-E-C-T-S. I guess facets of the Muslim faith differ depending on the region you're at and what they believe. Is there a consensus of support for you, or does it depend on who we're referring to? For instance, European Muslims or Indonesian Muslims or the Saudi Muslims. Are they helping you? Are they talking to China to say, what's going on here? Stop it?
Unfortunately, at the current moment, no Muslim country, majority country, has spoken out against China over our issue. In fact, on the contrary, the most Muslim countries have been siding with China, including, ironically, Palestine, siding with Beijing on our issue, stating that China has the right to engage in, quote, counterterrorism, and what they're doing is improving the human rights of people across the world and in East Turkestan as well, which is complete BS.
When you look at East Turkestan, I mean, you're not talking about a metropolis. You're not talking about a big economy. The potential's there for natural resource development and exploration and some other elements there that I think could be developed, not just in natural resources, but in commerce and economy. That said, do you think it's because China has its puppeteering strings tied to so many countries' economies that people don't speak up?
Absolutely. I mean, through the One Belt, One Road initiative, China has effectively invested hundreds of billions of dollars across, the Middle East, South Asia, and even in South and Central Asia, and even into Europe. And through this investment, China has effectively bought the silence of these countries.
We've had on retired General Robert Spalding, his book, Stealth Wars. I consistently recommend to people to talk about the threat of China. We've had National Security Council Director John Bolton on, and his Chief of Staff, Fred Fleitz, on. Fred's written several books on this, and it's something that people, without question, need to be aware of at a broad macro level and at a micro level, like what's happening in East Turkestan. When we come back, we'll talk more with Prime Minister. We'll talk about how is he a prime minister? How is the government set up? Who controls it? His name is Salih, Hudayar, and he's fighting the fight, folks, and we can help. We'll talk more how you can do that as well right here on The Tom Anderson Show.
This is The Tom Anderson Show, broadcasting live from the KVNT studios, 7 to 9 a.m., Monday through Friday.
So with Uyghurs and with Muslims and with a world that's in disarray with COVID-19 and a pandemic that's not only taking lives but really hobbling economies, we look to leaders like Prime Minister Salih Hudayar, who in Washington, D.C., has advocated for the end of the Uyghur genocide and what's happening in China. And I say tongue-in-cheek, go figure. I use that phrase because it's nonstop. Again, when we interviewed General Spaulding, Stealth Wars, he indicated and really dissected where China is affecting folks. But when it comes to organ harvesting and loss of life, that's about the worst. That's not like stealing a patent or a trademark, right? That's a big deal. So, Prime Minister, let's talk about your title and your government's organization. And then let's get into the breaking news that you wanted to talk about right now happening that the public may be interested in. First, your organizational structure.
So the East Turkistan government in exile was effectively set up, was established here in Washington, D.C. in September of 2004. We previously had the East Turkistan National Congress, and after that, in 2004, we restructured it into a formal government in exile. Currently, over 30 members of parliament that are directly elected by our members of our diaspora community across the world. And the parliamentary members, in turn, elect the president, the prime minister, the speaker of the parliament, vice president, and so forth. So it's a semi-democracy. We are looking to develop into a full democracy and have open, elections once we can get a system to where we can issue documentation, IDs to our diaspora communities.
By the way, congratulations are in order. Your wife had a baby. How is that?
Oh, thank you so much. Yes, it's great. It's my first baby, so it's a very pleasing thing. I'm very joyful, and thank you again.
Absolutely. Yeah. I ask, how's that, meaning being a new daddy? For those of us that have been there, the dads and the grandpas out there, they can smile and certainly be happy for you as well. And I know, was it a boy or girl?
It's a boy.
It's a boy. And your son, I have no doubt, what's his name?
His name is Abdul Qadir. I named him after my grandfather, but also the original founder of the East Turkistan National Awakening Movement back in the 1920s.
Wow, what a legacy. And I'm sure he'll have the same fire in his belly like his dad. For your son, I know you want to see, and for next generations, this changed. What's the new news, and does it give hope to all of us?
Absolutely. So as I mentioned earlier, we had urged the ICC to investigate, and prosecute over 30 Chinese officials, and including the Bing Tuan, which is the paramilitary construction corps, which is responsible for colonizing and East Turkestan and crushing all dissent. The U.S. government, the U.S. Treasury just announced earlier, roughly less than an hour ago, that they have slapped sanctions on the Bing Tuan and will freeze any of their assets if they have any in the United States.
Do you see hope coming most from the United States since you live here? Do you? I know you're a patriot. I know you believe in American values, and not even getting political. Who do you support for president, or who do you support for Congress? I'm talking about you. I know you off air enough, and by your actions, not just your words, you're pro-America. Is America pro-Uyghur?
Absolutely, especially the past 4 years under the current Trump administration. the U.S. government has been leading, the charge against China on our issue. In fact, it's the U.S. government that's really pushing our issue both nationally and internationally. And over the past few weeks, we had the UK, we had France and other countries like Canada join in as well. And this is much to the U.S. efforts to really raise our issue. The U.S. has been the only country to really sanction Chinese officials and entities for the genocide and the other crimes against humanity that they're undertaking in East Turkestan.
You have one of the most high-profile PR people and media people and experts, certainly in the nation, one of my dear friends, Maria Sliwa. So you've got the best there. Even with her panache and connections and networking ability, is it difficult to spread your message in mainstream U.S. media? Is there a fear, whether it's, anti-Muslim, not anti-you personally, because they may not know you, probably don't, but it may be anti-issue, don't want to meddle with a topic dealing with China, or do you find reception and a positive feedback and interview accepts whenever you reach out to folks to interview and talk about it?
So mostly, we've had some difficulties reaching out to the mainstream media, especially on the left. I think for them, the East Turkestan issue might be sensitive. I'm not quite sure. But as far as the right and center, we've had positive receptions when we reach out to them. Fox News is really great. They've consistently reported on us and our activities and what's happening in East Turkestan.
What's neat about that, and I did not know that, they say make sure you have the answers to questions. That doesn't work on a talk show when you interview a prime minister. I don't know the answers to my questions. That's why I'm asking them. And when I look at one of my go-tos for my show, The Tom Anderson Show, is Fox News, and I think they're credible. I think their moniker's spot on with a fair and balanced belief and practice. And I hope people, either watching this YouTube video or listening on the radio, understand that and think about that. Salih said, the prime minister said, the Republicans, the conservatives, the pro-America patriots, Fox News, President Donald J. Trump, they're the ones that are helping the Uyghurs, the Muslims, the folks that are getting subjugated in China. When the left says the Republicans, we hear this often enough, and I am one, we're not supportive, we're not all-inclusive, it's nonsense. And I think one of the best examples under the President Trump administration is your advocacy and his support of it. How can people help to that end? President Trump's helping. Are people funding this? Do you have a website where someone can donate or follow the movement, or is that just coming into play now?
Absolutely. We have a website. People can learn more information on www.east-turkistan.net, east-turkistan.net. They can follow us on social media, be it Facebook, Twitter at ET-Exile.gov. Most of our support at the moment is coming from our diaspora community. If people want to donate, they can donate directly on our website. But right now we have this campaign trying to raise funds for the legal and other expenses related to our ICC case. We have a GoFundMe page, and if anybody would like to donate to that, we would greatly appreciate it.
I'll make sure that I plug that on the YouTube in the bottom section and the subtitles. I appreciate, Mr. Prime Minister, your efforts, especially as a new dad, and when you probably are getting pulled across the world and across both sides of the aisle, and with an election and then with COVID-19, so your inability to travel to meet with other world leaders is probably suppressed a bit. But I compliment you and I praise you and I send you blessings for your effort, because, as you noted, it's not just your religious affiliation that is trying to defend against this slaughter, this genocide. It is now growing into the world, and I think there's solidarity to stop it. And by the way, folks, I always remind everybody, maybe it's the Uyghurs today. Next, it's our Jewish friends or the Catholics or the Lutherans or the Mormons. So we don't want that to happen. Mr. Prime Minister, thank you so much for your time, and we are sending you our prayers.
Thank you so much.
This is the Tom Anderson Show. Good morning.